This is the Sleep Historian. Each night we explore the echoes of the past, stories told slowly to calm the mind and ease you towards sleep. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through time, please like and subscribe, and let the next story begin. Before stories of vanished wonders or towering green terraces, there is silence. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates lies under a soft dawn, its horizon washed in pale gold. Dry earth stretches outward, broken only by calm rivers winding through a vast plain. The air is warm, still, and expectant. Nothing here suggests cascading gardens or impossible architecture rising into the sky. Yet across centuries, a single question lingers quietly in human imagination. Did Babylon once hold a wonder so extraordinary that it seemed almost unreal? To explore the truth, we must travel back to ancient Mesopotamia. As morning brightens, the rivers shimmer gently, reflecting a world that nurtured some of the earliest cities. This is the setting for Babylon, a place remembered for power, innovation, and grandeur. The story of the Hanging Gardens begins not with excavation or discovery, but with written words preserved across time. Ancient texts describe a marvel unlike anything known, a series of rising terraces filled with trees, flowers, and flowing water. Yet no ruins have been found. To understand what might be real, we must step into Babylon's history, where memory, record, and possibility intertwine in quiet complexity. Time drifts backward to the first millennium BCE. You find yourself approaching the ancient city of Babylon, where mud brick walls rise against a warm, hazy sky. The air carries the smell of dust and distant river water. Traders lead animals along packed roads, their footsteps soft against the earth. The city pulses with everyday life, its people moving with practiced purpose. Babylon is already legendary for its scale and influence. In this calm scene, there is no sign of towering gardens, yet the foundations of a great empire are visible in the orderly streets and monumental architecture surrounding you. Walk toward the Ishtar Gate, its glazed bricks glowing with deep blue hues. Lions and dragons are outlined in golden relief, watching silently as citizens pass beneath them. A guard adjusts his spear, sunlight catching the polished metal tip. Beyond the gate, wide streets stretch toward temple complexes and palaces. Babylon feels powerful, designed to impress through height, color, and careful symmetry. The atmosphere is calm but commanding. If a wonder once stood here, it would have risen within a culture already accustomed to monumental ambition, where kings sought to shape the landscape as a symbol of authority. At the heart of Babylon stands the massive temple tower known as Etemenanki. Its stepped levels rise layer by layer, drawing the eye upward into the bright sky. Workers carry baskets of clay, preparing repairs under the heat of midday. A priest pauses near a shaded alcove, smoothing the edge of a clay tablet with steady fingers. The structure embodies both engineering skill and spiritual purpose. This towering ziggurat reveals that Babylonians could build on a grand vertical scale. The quiet presence of this monument sparks a gentle question. Could the same ingenuity have supported elevated terraces filled with greenery? Enter the Royal Palace District, where spacious courtyards open onto long corridors lined with carved brickwork. Servants move quietly, carrying vessels of water in woven baskets. A scribe sits near a low wall, stylus pressed into damp clay as he records provisions delivered to the palace. The complex feels expansive and structured, with separate areas for administration, ritual, and residence. The calm order suggests meticulous planning. If gardens existed, they would not have been whimsical ornaments, but part of a carefully managed environment shaped by royal purpose and supported by skilled labor operating with steady precision. Babylon lies in a hot, arid climate. Its natural landscape depends heavily on irrigation drawn from the Euphrates. Along the riverbank, workers guide water into channels, their hands wet with mud and clay. Reeds sway gently in the shallow current. The dependence on controlled water flow is clear. Babylonians master irrigation because survival demands it. This quiet relationship between land and water hints at something important. A monumental garden would require not just beauty, but engineering capable of lifting water upward in steady, continuous streams. In this dry region, greenery becomes a symbol of mastery over nature. Texts describe Babylon as a place of wealth and power under the Neo-Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II. In a shaded administrative room, officials tally grain and metals, marking trade agreements with careful impressions on clay tablets. A servant pours a small cup of water, placing it gently on a low table. The calm rhythm of governance reflects a prosperous empire, with resources to undertake large projects. Nebuchadnezzar's reign is known for massive construction, including temples, walls, and ceremonial gates. If the gardens existed, his era provides the most likely time frame, when ambition and capacity aligned in deliberate harmony. Nebuchadnezzar's inscriptions speak of rebuilding Babylon to make it the glory of kingdoms. Imagine the king standing on a palace terrace, surveying the city as sunlight reflects off newly constructed walls. He smooths the folds of his robe with one hand, studying the vast expanse of buildings below. His intent is clear: to elevate Babylon above all rivals. Some later writers suggest the gardens were built as a gesture of devotion, possibly for a queen longing for the green hills of her homeland. The calm image of a ruler seeking to comfort and impress adds a quiet human dimension. Yet in all known inscriptions left by Nebuchadnezzar, the gardens are not mentioned. A scholar in a quiet storeroom examines tablets, brushing away loose dust with deliberate care. He finds detailed records of construction projects, walls, temples, and canals, but no reference to rising terraces filled with vegetation. This silence is striking. It does not disprove the gardens, but it raises gentle doubt. The calm absence invites reflection. If such a wonder existed, why would the king omit it from his boasts? The question lingers, suspended between expectation and uncertainty, guiding us deeper into historical inquiry. The earliest surviving mention of the Hanging Gardens does not come from Babylonian sources, but from Greek writers. Imagine a scroll unfurled in a quiet study, centuries after Nebuchadnezzar. A historian traces the inked lines with his fingertip, noting references to a remarkable garden in Babylon. The words describe terraces, trees, and streams flowing downward like waterfalls. The account feels distant, secondhand, preserved through memory rather than direct observation. The calm realization emerges. The legend enters written history not from those who lived in Babylon, but from later voices trying to capture stories already softened by time. Herodotus, one of the earliest Greek historians, wrote extensively about Babylon. describing its walls, streets, and customs. Yet he never mentions the hanging gardens. In a shaded archive, a scholar turns pages slowly, eyes scanning each line. The omission is notable. Herodotus recorded many details, sometimes with dramatic flair, but the gardens are absent from his account. The quiet absence does not confirm anything, but it creates a subtle gap in the historical record. If such a wonder had stood prominently in the city, its silence in early Greek writings raises thoughtful questions about its prominence or existence. The first detailed description comes later from writers like Diodorus Siculus, who relied on even earlier sources now lost. In a calm library illuminated by filtered sunlight, a student copies passages describing a multi-tiered garden filled with exotic plants and flowing water. The text claims the terraces rose high enough to resemble a mountain. The language evokes awe, yet it lacks specific measurements or first-hand testimony. A small crease forms between the student's brows as he considers the uncertainty. The story feels grand, but distant, shaped more by imagination and hearsay than by precise architectural knowledge. Another source, the historian Strabo, offers a description of vaulted terraces watered by machinery, possibly a spiral pump. In a quiet lecture hall, a teacher points to a sketch of gears and pulleys drawn in charcoal. Students lean forward, intrigued by the idea of ancient engineering capable of lifting water. The concept seems plausible within a culture skilled at irrigation. Yet Strabo wrote centuries after Babylon's peak. His account reflects inherited information rather than direct observation. The calm understanding settles in. The details may hold fragments of truth, but they arrive through layers of retelling and interpretation. Later Roman writers add further embellishments, describing lush greenery and elaborate irrigation systems. In a scriptorium, a monk carefully transcribes these accounts, ink drying slowly as he finishes each line. The story becomes richer, more vivid, shaped by centuries of fascination. But as the descriptions grow more elaborate, the direct connection to Babylon grows thinner. A gentle question arises: are these writers preserving history or building a legend inspired by distant memory? The silence of factual evidence contrasts with the growing beauty of the tale, creating a quiet tension between record and imagination. Archaeological excavations in Babylon have uncovered vast palace complexes, temple foundations, and sections of massive walls. Yet no definitive remains of elevated terraces have been identified. In a dusty trench, an archaeologist brushes a brick with slow, deliberate strokes, revealing ancient inscriptions. The structures uncovered are impressive, but they do not match the expected design of the gardens described in later texts. The calm clarity of physical evidence suggests that if the gardens existed, they left little trace or were located somewhere yet unexplored. The mystery endures, sustained by possibility rather than proof. Some scholars propose that the gardens might not have been in Babylon at all, but in Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire under King Sennacherib. In a museum, a curator examines reliefs depicting lush landscapes, waterways, and terraced constructions. Her gloved hands steady a fragment showing trees planted along rising platforms. The imagery feels closer to the Greek descriptions. A quiet theory forms. Perhaps later writers misattributed the location. The calm suggestion opens a new path of thought. The wonder may have existed, but under a different ruler and in a different city than long assumed. In Nineveh, inscriptions from Sennacherib boast of a palace without rival and gardens nourished by complex irrigation. Imagine water coursing through channels, lifted by mechanical devices powered by flowing streams. Engineers adjust wooden levers, testing movement with careful hands. The landscape appears transformed into a lush environment amid arid surroundings. The similarity to descriptions of the Hanging Gardens is striking, yet no ancient writer links Sennacherib directly to the Babylonian legend. The calm ambiguity remains. The pieces fit in places, but not completely, leaving historians to weigh evidence gently, without final certainty. Return now to Babylon during the height of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. The Euphrates glides beside the city, its surface reflecting sunlight in soft ripples. Along its banks, workers cultivate date palms and barley, their hands moving steadily as they tend the fields. Greenery here is practical, shaped by necessity rather than spectacle. The calm landscape reminds you that flourishing plant life was not impossible in Babylon, but carefully managed. If a monumental garden existed, it would represent an extraordinary departure from ordinary cultivation, requiring intention, resources, and a purpose beyond simple nourishment or shade. Inside the palace, administrative activity unfolds with quiet precision. Scribes press marks into clay tablets, cataloging shipments of timber, stone, and grain. A servant pours water into a shallow basin, the surface trembling slightly from the motion. The king's projects are vast, but always documented. This meticulous record-keeping contrasts with the absence of any mention of a great terraced garden. The silence feels deliberate, or at least meaningful. The calm gap between expectation and documentation shapes the investigation. Without written evidence from Babylon itself, the wonder remains suspended between belief and skepticism. Imagine a wide courtyard inside the palace complex, where potted plants provide pockets of shade. A gardener kneels to adjust soil around a small fig tree, his fingers pressing lightly into the cool earth. Water trickles from a nearby channel, feeding the roots. Such modest gardens existed and offered comfort in the heat. They reveal that Babylonians appreciated greenery, yet they also highlight scale. These quiet spaces are intimate, not monumental. The contrast underscores the magnitude of what the Hanging Gardens are said to have been, a towering landscape unlike anything else in recorded Babylonian design. The technology required to lift water upward to raise terraces would have been remarkable. In a workshop near the river, craftsmen shape wooden wheels and ceramic pipes. A young apprentice rotates a small gear, watching its smooth movement with fascination. Such mechanisms hint at potential methods for water transport, but evidence remains fragmentary. The calm exploration of engineering possibilities suggests that while the idea is not impossible, it would demand continuous effort and maintenance. The sheer energy required raises questions about whether such a system was ever implemented on the monumental scale described by later writers. Babylon's climate further complicates the idea. Summer heat rises intensely, and rainfall is scarce. In the dry afternoon, dust drifts along the streets, settling on stone and brick. A passerby wipes his palm across his brow, leaving a faint streak. Sustaining elevated gardens in such conditions would mean constant irrigation, carefully managed to prevent evaporation. The calm reality underscores the challenge. A wonder of cascading greenery might have been possible, but only with relentless attention and engineering skill, adding weight to the mystery rather than clarifying its historical truth. Over time, Babylon suffered invasions, conquests, and eventual decline. Alexander the Great visited the city and planned to restore its structures, but his death left projects unfinished. In a quiet courtyard, a soldier adjusts a cracked shield, leaning it gently against a crumbling wall. The city's grandeur faded. Ruins eroded beneath shifting sands and flooding rivers. If the gardens once stood, their demise would have been gradual, softened by time and neglect, rather than sudden destruction. The calm passage of centuries could have erased physical evidence, leaving only echoes in distant writings. As the centuries unfolded, Babylon's location was forgotten by many. Travelers passed through Mesopotamia unaware of the city's exact position. In a caravan camp under a star-filled sky, a merchant unfolds a worn map, tracing faint lines with a slow gesture. Geography shifted in memory, and ancient landmarks blurred. The calm fading of knowledge reminds us that wonders can vanish, not through collapse alone, but through the quiet erosion of collective memory. Without consistent record or preservation, even monumental achievements can slip beyond recognition, leaving historians to search among fragmented clues. When archaeologists rediscovered Babylon's remains in the 19th century, they uncovered walls, temples, and palaces, but no clear sign of rising terraces. In a tent near the excavation site, a researcher records findings by lamplight, pages rustling softly in the warm night air. The structures match descriptions of other Babylonian architecture, but nothing resembles the legendary gardens. The calm conclusion grows. If the wonder existed, its remnants are either lost, dismantled, or perhaps never belonged to Babylon in the first place. The silence of the ruins deepens the mystery, inviting thoughtful investigation rather than definitive answers. Focus now on the writings themselves. The descriptions of the gardens vary between ancient authors. Some speak of terraces like rising steps, others of vaulted chambers supporting heavy soil. In a library, a scholar compares passages side by side, eyes moving slowly across the text. He notes differences in detail, terminology, and emphasis. The calm discrepancies suggest that the story evolved over time, shaped by retelling rather than consistent documentation. The lack of uniformity hints at a legend expanding through imagination, each writer adding layers that obscure the original source of the tale. Consider the purpose of Greek accounts. Many writers sought to compile knowledge from across the known world, often relying on second-hand information. In a quiet study, a historian sharpens his stylus, preparing to translate an older text. His concentration is steady, his movements precise. The goal is not verification, but education and entertainment. The calm awareness emerges. The Hanging Gardens may have been cited because they symbolize the exotic grandeur of the East, fitting neatly into narratives designed to capture attention rather than document first-hand observations or confirm architectural realities. Some descriptions frame the gardens as a royal gesture of love. In one version, Nebuchadnezzar builds them for a Median queen, longing for her mountainous homeland. Imagine her standing on a terrace garden, lifting her hand to touch the leaves of a cypress tree, eyes soft with memory. The story carries emotional weight, but no direct evidence. A scribe recording royal events would normally note such a grand project, yet none appear. The calm sentimentality of the tale highlights its romantic appeal rather than its historical grounding, inviting reflection on how stories can blend affection with invention. Other accounts emphasize engineering marvels, vaulted structures, waterproof layers of bitumen, and machinery lifting water upward describe a feat of ingenuity. In a model workshop centuries later, an architect sketches layered platforms, charcoal lines curving across parchment. He adds estimates of weight and stress, imagining how stone could support soil and trees. The calm exercise demonstrates that such construction is theoretically possible, but theory alone does not confirm reality. The absence of physical remains keeps the idea suspended between feasible innovation and legendary embellishment, balancing possibility with uncertainty. The name Hanging Gardens may itself be misleading. Some scholars suggest the term refers not to suspended structures, but to stepped terraces resembling a hillside. In a lecture room, a professor gestures toward a diagram of sloped platforms filled with vegetation. Students nod thoughtfully, considering the reinterpretation. The calm shift in meaning shows how language evolves. The gardens might not have hung in the air, but simply rose above ground level in a dramatic series of levels. This understanding broadens the scope of what the wonder could have been, while still preserving its essential grandeur. If the gardens were located in Nineveh, Sennacherib's inscriptions provide more direct evidence. They boast of bringing mountains to the city and creating lush landscapes fed by canals. In a dim archive, a researcher traces cuneiform lines with a stylus, translating phrases that describe an unparalleled garden. The calm clarity of these inscriptions contrasts with Babylon's silence. Reliefs show trees, watercourses, and elevated platforms. These visual cues align more closely with Greek accounts. The possibility grows stronger that the legendary wonder, remembered through shifting stories, may have originated under a different ruler and in a different place. However, the link between Nineveh and the Hanging Gardens remains indirect. Later writers consistently associate the wonder with Babylon, not Nineveh. In a discussion between scholars, one taps the edge of a tablet thoughtfully, acknowledging the ambiguity. The calm debate highlights the challenge. Historical memory is imperfect, and geographic attributions can drift across generations. Without explicit ancient testimony connecting Sennacherib's gardens to the Babylonian legend, the theory remains speculative, offering a compelling alternative, but not a definitive relocation of the wonder described in Greek texts. The absence of archaeological evidence in Babylon and the presence of suggestive clues in Nineveh create a gentle tension. In a museum gallery, visitors stand before a relief showing flowing water and tiered vegetation, their expressions thoughtful. The calm display invites contemplation rather than conclusion. The truth may be layered. A magnificent garden could have existed in Nineveh, later attributed to Babylon through shifting oral traditions. The wonder might be real, but misplaced. Or it may have been an idealized vision, shaped by admiration rather than direct observation. The mystery remains open, balanced between possibility and doubt. Turn now to the cultural impact. The story of the Hanging Gardens endured because it captured the imagination. In a medieval scriptorium, a monk copies a passage describing the wonder, candlelight reflecting in his ink jar. He pauses briefly, absorbing the image of cascading greenery in a distant land. The calm transmission of this idea through generations shows how legends can persist even without physical proof. The gardens became a symbol of human ambition, inspiring awe simply through the power of storytelling and the enduring appeal of nature elevated above its ordinary place. During the Renaissance, interest in ancient wonders surged. Scholars gathered in quiet halls, discussing the seven wonders of the world. A painter studies a description of the Hanging Gardens, then begins sketching terraces rising toward the sky, adding waterfalls and distant mountains. His brush moves slowly, layering green and gold pigments. The calm, creative act reflects how the legend inspired art and imagination. The image grows more vivid through interpretation rather than evidence, transforming the gardens into a canvas for human longing, curiosity, and admiration for ancient ingenuity, whether real or imagined. As global exploration expanded, travelers searched for traces of legendary places. In a camp near ancient ruins, an explorer examines broken bricks, brushing dirt away with his sleeve. He notes measurements in a leather-bound journal, hopeful for discovery. Yet nothing he finds resembles the gardens described in ancient texts. The calm realization forms. Exploration can reveal many truths, but some wonders remain elusive, shaped more by memory and storytelling than by physical remains waiting to be uncovered beneath the earth or hidden beneath shifting landscapes. In the 19th century, archaeologists systematically excavated Babylon's remains. Thick walls, wide courtyards, and imposing structures emerged from layers of sand and silt. In a trench, a researcher kneels to examine a brick stamped with Nebuchadnezzar's name, fingers tracing its rough surface. The ruins are impressive, but none align with detailed descriptions of the Hanging Gardens. The calm assessment suggests that if the wonder stood here, its evidence has not survived. Alternatively, it may never have been built in this city at all, reinforcing the quiet uncertainty that surrounds the legend. Modern historians analyze ancient accounts with critical care. In a university seminar, a professor places copies of Greek texts side by side, pointing out inconsistencies between them. Students take notes, pens moving steadily across paper. The calm, scholarly approach emphasizes method over myth. Discrepancies in the descriptions highlight the possibility that the gardens were exaggerated or imagined. The story becomes a case study in how history can blur into legend when transmitted across centuries without direct documentation, showing that beauty in narrative does not guarantee factual accuracy. Engineers today model the feasibility of terraced gardens using ancient technology. In a lab, a researcher turns a crank connected to a wooden screw pump, water rising gradually through transparent tubes. Observers watch quietly, noting the effort required for continuous operation. The calm experiment demonstrates that lifting water to significant heights would have been possible but demanding. The system would need constant labor and maintenance, raising practical questions. Could such a mechanism have supported a massive garden year-round in Babylon's climate? The uncertainty persists, grounded in the balance between ambition and practicality. Climate studies add another layer. Researchers analyze pollen samples from Mesopotamian soil, searching for traces of diverse vegetation. In a sterile lab, a technician places a slide under a microscope, adjusting the focus with careful fingers. The findings reflect typical regional plants, not the exotic species described in later accounts. The COM data suggests that if the gardens existed, they may not have contained the wide variety of flora imagined in retellings. The legend may have grown more lush and fantastical over time, shaped by admiration rather than botanical records. Despite unanswered questions, the story continues to captivate because it represents harmony between nature and architecture. In a modern garden, a visitor pauses beneath an archway covered in climbing vines, running fingertips along cool leaves. The quiet beauty evokes a timeless longing to see life flourish where it seems least expected. The hanging gardens persist, not through excavation, but through imagination. The calm emotional resonance keeps the wonder alive, inviting reflection on humanity's desire to build beauty in barren places and create havens of greenery amid sun-baked landscapes. Archaeologists exploring Nineveh have uncovered evidence of sophisticated waterworks. Near the ruins of ancient canals, a team stands beside carved stone aqueducts designed to channel water across great distances. One researcher kneels, tracing the grooves along the stone surface, admiring the precision. The calm discovery strengthens the possibility that a grand garden existed in Assyria rather than Babylon. The engineering achievements recorded here align with descriptions of water lifted to great heights, offering a plausible foundation for the legendary wonder, even if its true location has been obscured through centuries of shifting memory. Sennacherib's inscriptions describe a palace complex adorned with trees and exotic plants. In a museum, a curator examines a tablet bearing cuneiform lines that speak of transforming dry land into a lush environment. Her gloved hand steadies the artifact as she translates the text. The calm clarity of these words contrasts with Babylon's silence. The account mentions irrigation systems and gardens created to astonish visitors. Though not labeled as hanging gardens, the description feels strikingly similar, suggesting that memory may have merged separate stories into one enduring legend passed down across cultures. Reliefs from Nineveh show terraced landscapes and flowing water. In a gallery, a visitor stands before a stone panel depicting trees rising in stepped formations. The scene feels vibrant even in carved stone. A hand gently touches the glass protecting the relief, tracing the outline of a tree. The calm imagery echoes elements found in Greek accounts, reinforcing the possibility that the legendary gardens might have been Assyrian. The convergence of art and text creates a quiet intersection where history, memory, and interpretation meet, though definitive proof remains just out of reach. Some scholars propose that Greek historians may have visited or heard descriptions of Nineveh's gardens, but attributed them to Babylon, a more widely recognized center of ancient wonder. In a seminar room, two researchers discuss the idea, one tapping a pen against a notebook as they compare sources. The calm debate reflects how easily knowledge can shift across time. Misattribution is common in oral traditions, especially when stories travel between cultures. The possibility that the wonder was real but misplaced offers a gentle reconciliation between legend and evidence. Others suggest the gardens may have been entirely symbolic, representing prosperity and divine favor. In a quiet study, a theologian flips through ancient texts. noting how gardens often symbolize paradise and renewal. He sets his hand lightly on the page, considering the metaphor. The calm interpretation reframes the wonder, not as architecture, but as allegory, expressing a ruler's power to create abundance in barren lands. The legend might have grown from metaphor into supposed reality, illustrating how stories can shift from symbolic imagery to literal expectation over centuries. Still, the lack of definitive archaeological evidence keeps the debate unresolved. In a conference hall, scholars present findings and counter-arguments, their voices steady and respectful. A projector highlights excavation maps and translated inscriptions. The calm procession of data reveals possibilities rather than conclusions. Some fragments support the existence of a grand garden in Nineveh. Others emphasize Babylon's architectural capabilities. The truth remains elusive, a quiet puzzle that resists final answers, reminding researchers that history can hold mysteries no amount of careful study can fully untangle. Ultimately, the question returns to what ancient writers intended to convey. Imagine sitting with a scroll in a quiet room, your hand resting lightly on the parchment. The story of the Hanging Gardens speaks of human achievement, imagination, and longing for beauty. Whether real or legendary, the tale encourages reflection on what civilizations value. The calm message endures. Wonders can live in memory, even when they leave no stones behind. The legend invites contemplation of how human creativity shapes landscapes, and how stories preserve dreams that physical evidence cannot confirm. The truth about Babylon's Hanging Gardens remains uncertain. No definitive proof confirms their existence in Babylon, yet compelling clues point toward Assyria. In the fading light of an imagined ancient city, picture a terrace covered in greenery, water flowing softly through channels. A gardener adjusts a branch, hands steady, eyes calm. Whether this scene ever existed or lives only in collective imagination, the legend endures. The gardens remain a lost wonder, suspended between history and myth, inviting quiet thought about how stories survive long after structures crumble into dust, and memory becomes the only foundation left. Let your thoughts drift across everything you have seen, from bustling Babylonian streets to terraced reliefs in distant Nineveh, from written accounts to silent ruins. These images soften and blend into one continuous reflection. The Hanging Gardens stand not as confirmed architecture, but as a gentle reminder of human aspiration. The calm understanding settles. Some wonders endure through imagination rather than stone. The story invites contemplation of how civilizations rise, flourish, and fade, leaving behind questions rather than certainty. In that quiet space, the legend becomes a bridge between what was real and what was longed for. Return now to the present moment. The world around you is still, far from ancient cities and vanished landscapes. You may hear only soft sounds, a faint hum, a settling floorboard, or the steady rhythm of your breath. The legend of the Hanging Gardens fades gently into memory, part of a vast tapestry of stories that shape our sense of history. Here, you are calm, grounded, and at rest. Let your mind settle like water flowing into a quiet pool. The night stretches peaceful and steady, inviting sleep. The wonder remains in thought, serene and timeless.